once again, and welcome back to my channel. I just want to be really casual today. I know full face of makeup and casual don't seem too much, but I felt very low-key about booktube. I accidentally stumbled upon the contradictions book tag and the question sounded really cool, but I still want to do my own take on it. So this is gonna be the contradictions book tag, the sapphic romance edition, because I know that's what you want from me, and that is also what I want from myself. The tag was created by a fellow booktuber, only if for a page, and I'm going to link her original video in the description box down below. Don't forget to check it out. The first prompt is, I like the genre, but I didn't like this book, and there are actually quite a few questions about books that I didn't like, so I decided to add to my list the DNFs because I don't really talk about them all that much on my channel, and I thought it's gonna be an interesting twist. The book that I decided to choose for this prompt is Serpentine Valentine by Gianna Darling. I recently posted a whole spoilery reading vlog of this book. My excitement for it was peaked. I was not expecting it. I didn't know that it's coming out, and with indie orders you usually don't know what's coming out until it comes out or until a week prior to the publication date. As far as I know, Gianna Darling doesn't have any other published type of romance, so I didn't know what to expect, but I was definitely very excited because it has so many buzzwords that are just my thing. This is a dark academia modern retelling of the myth of Medusa, and I love both of these things. I also think that it talks about a very under-talked about topic such as sexual assault and gendered sexual violence on campus. It's also at the same time an epic romance. So this book was very ambitious, but I personally believe that it's bitten more than it can chew. The things that I actually enjoyed about it, as much as you can enjoy this kind of thing, is the discussions around sexual assault. But the romance wasn't it. And when you market your book as a romance, the romance should be really good. Some of the descriptions were really weird, and I even talked about them in my spoiler reading vlog because I just wanted you to experience it with me. I was losing my mind a little bit. The salted pasta water quote is one for the ages. I think the core of my disappointment lays with how much potential this book wasted. I could see how this book could have been made so much better with just a stricter editor, because those quotes, they were wacky, and with a little bit more breathing space and explanation of specific little plot holes that certainly made a dent at the end. I have not told you what this book is about. I have a lot of feelings. This book follows a young woman named Alexandra, or Alex. She goes to a university and studies Greek classics. She's very passionate about the subject and in general about academia because she comes from a family of doomsdayers, and as a child she was actually discouraged from knowledge and books and the wider world. So when she eventually ran off and started living with a different family, she made it into a priority to get into uni. She's very close with her Greek classics professor and is constantly invited to his office after school because they like to talk about their passion, the books. He plays it up as if he values her intelligence and wants to make her his assistant next year, but at the end it turns out that he was interested in her sexually, so he drugs her and grapes her. When she goes to the school's director and tells on him she doesn't believe her or doesn't really want to believe her because it's a big scandal for the school, Lex gets banned from the grounds for a long period of time. When she comes back, she is determined to avenge herself. She wants to make the guy pay, obviously, and she wants to make the director pay as well. And the director she wants to target through her daughter. I liked some elements of this relationship because I like tension and I like dark romance in theory because I like complicated themes, gray areas, etc., etc. But there were certain moments in this book that felt coercive from Lex's side to 𝕊𝕙's side. 𝕊𝕙 is the daughter of the director. And also some more erotic scenes felt at times very leery and male-gazy. The second prompt is, I rarely read this genre, but I really love this book, and the book that I want to mention is One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston. I know it's old news, it's been a while, I read it 2 years ago, but that's the only book that sort of kind of fit the bill here, and also I do not talk about it all that much, I feel like, on the channel. I decided to go with this one because I don't really read a lot of contemporary romances with fantasy elements, as in the world is still contemporary, but there is this one element that makes it a little fantastical. Like, it's not a whole world that is changing, but this little thing just makes the story different. And in the case of the One Last Stop, it was the time travel element. Basically, the premise of this book is August, who is a young woman, moves to New York. She has a plethora of issues she's running from, and she starts building her life from a new page. On a subway, she meets a charming woman named Jane. One day, August asks Jane out, and Jane says no, but the wording is weird, which leads August to a very extensive investigation, at the end of which she concludes that Jane is from a different era. So she bands with Jane and tries to release her back to the past. But the book is basically set in 2 time periods. It's Jane's time period, which is such a cool time period for New York, and also the present timeline where August is trying to help Jane remember what type of life she led in the past and how to possibly go back there. What's interesting to me is that I personally do not enjoy time travel romances or time travel as a trope in general. I think it's very overdone in fiction, especially in fantasy fiction, but in this case it just added a lot of charm to a very basic romance. Without it, the romance would have been just, you know, a regular romantic comedy. The next prompt is, love this trope but didn't really like this book, and we're dipping our toes into my DNFs. The Set Piece by Catherine Lane. I have not talked about this book on this channel, but I do have a lot to say. This romance has a fake dating, fake fiancé trope, and I usually love it. And the most interesting part about this book is that the people that were getting fake engaged weren't the love interests. So that was an interesting twist, and I thought that it's kind of genius and it would make a really good book, but no. The protagonist's name is Amy. She's a big soccer fan and she works in a bar, I believe. It's been a while, but she doesn't make a lot of money. Due to her job attracting a lot of sports fans, she is constantly in that space, and she accidentally meets a guy that represents a very famous soccer player named Diego. Don't remember his surname, it doesn't matter. The agent tells Amy that Diego really needs to hire a woman just like her for something, but without the NDA he is not willing to tell her, and that the money is really good. Amy essentially decides to sign the NDA because she's curious, and who doesn't need a lot of money, And when the NDA is signed, it is revealed that Diego needs a fake fiance because he's actually gay. At the end, she agrees and she meets Diego. Diego is an incredible guy. He is an outstanding person and they very quickly connect and vibe. But the actual love interest is not Diego, obviously. It's Casey, Diego's assistant. This book lost its plot, as in it forgot that it's a lesbian romance, because Amy and Diego had more chemistry and the author spent so much time developing their relationship. It was very much bachelor-like, as in they were sharing a lot of deep conversations that, which by romance rules, she should have shared with Casey. That didn't happen. It was very confusing for me and I gave up on it, I think 20 or 30% into, because I just didn't feel the chemistry between Casey and Amy, and the whole Amy Diego situation was becoming really straight. So I wasn't into it. Actually, if you read this book, tell me if it ever got better. Moving on to the next prompt, which is, I hate this trope, but I really love this book. And the book that I want to mention, of course, is Mistakes Were Made by 𝕊𝕌ℙ𝕆ℝ𝕋. As we all know, I'm not big on age gaps. I'm not a fan. I don't love them. I don't understand them. I'm not into this dynamic. I've never felt all that comfortable reading it, and usually it is more of an obstacle for me than an incentive to read the book. But I really wanted to try this one because it sounded juicy, and this book indeed is very juicy. If you've seen my smutty sapphic romance recommendations video, you know that I first of all love it, second of all it was very hot. So Mistakes Were Made stars Cassie, who is a uni student. She's very driven and is into casual hookups. She goes to this bar outside of campus occasionally to pick up women, and on one of those nights she picks up a woman that is much older than her. Her name is Everand, but they click instantly and consummate their attraction almost immediately. So they are very pleased with the encounter and they don't expect to see each other again. It really felt like a one-night stand, but on the next day they meet each other again because it turns out that Erin is the mom of Casey's friend. So that becomes really awkward really quickly. This book reminded me so much of the sex lives of college girls. If you have not seen that show, it is so incredibly funny and fun. I binged it so quickly, and I'm not pleased with the last season or with the way the last season ended, but I will watch it regardless. So Cassie is really that driven, that confident young person, and Erin is more hesitant. She's more level-headed. She has a lot of things at stake because it's her daughter. Her daughter is not gonna be pleased with her. They do definitely have a lot of very real obstacles to the relationship, but they also have so much chemistry and they talk about the age gap, which I really loved. In a lot of age gap romances, people don't talk about the age gap and what it means for their relationship. It's also equally funny, sexy, and angsty, and I love all of those things. The balance was impeccable. I really love this book. Okay, the next prompt is, I love this author, but I didn't like this book, and it gotta be The Fiancé Farce by Alexandra Bellafleur. You know that I didn't really like this book because I put it on my most disliked of 2023. I was just so disappointed because I loved Written in the Stars. It's a 5-star book for me. I loved it because it definitely had all those Bridget Jones vibes in the best way possible, and this one was just a cash grab in my opinion. It was just so long and so stupid. It was like Alexander Bellefleur got desperate and threw all the possible tropes into a hat and started picking them up one by one. The chemistry between the characters was actually there, but I really didn't like the way the plot developed because it was just too much. Too much. Sometimes you just need to take things out because it makes the plot messier. I don't even want to tell you what this book is about because it takes me 20 minutes, honestly, to summarize it. And it always is annoying to me. But I guess all you need to know is that it's a fake fiancé romance and these two girls don't actually know each other. One of them pretends to date the other because she's a famous book cover model. But at the end, they have to help each other and play their parts as fiancés for different reasons. I wasn't a fan. And the cover is so gorgeous. Like, this is one of the best drawn covers. And there are so many right now, but this one just stands out, especially because it's actually a scene from the book, but the writing is just not there. I'm sorry. The next prompt is, I previously disliked a book by this author, but I loved this one. And it's also a book that you have not heard about before because I just finished it. It's The Love Conspiracy by J.J. Arias. Now, I have a very weird luck with J.J. Arias. Some books I just really like, really enjoy, find them absolutely and undeniably charming and full of chemistry. The plots are also usually very interesting and cool, but some books from her repertoire I just don't vibe with. They're not as well written in my opinion. And I think it's the curse of an indie author because they are free to publish whatever they want, whatever comes to their mind, and the catalog is not as curated as it would have been if the author would have been published traditionally. So the book that I actually really disliked by J.J. Arias is a vampire book. I don't remember the title, but it was so cheesily written, I didn't believe one word. The book that I want to talk about is the book that I read recently and loved, which is The Love Conspiracy. This has such a unique plot. Well, it is a plot of a movie, but unique as in I have not seen it before in romance. The book closely follows the plot of the comedy movie with Cameron Diaz, The Other Woman. The story is about Veronica and Ellie, who both are in a relationship with the same man without knowing it. Veronica has been married to Gabe for about 20 years. She's a very successful lawyer with not a lot of free time, so she wasn't noticing that Gabe was kind of playing her and was using his work trips to cheat on her. But he wasn't just sleeping around with random people, he was maintaining multiple long-term relationships, and Ellie, the second protagonist, turns out to be one of those women. Veronica comes to her yoga class to confront her, but it turns out that Ellie had no idea that Gabe is married. Veronica asks Ellie to not break up with Gabe because she doesn't want him to suspect things. She wants to collect as much evidence as possible for the divorce case and to follow him around and see how many other women he is dating at the same time. Ellie is also hurt by this revelation and she decides that she's going to accompany Veronica and to help her with it. And while they are staking this guy out and spending all this time together, they fall in love. This book changed my brain chemistry. I was giggling like a girl. And it was so goddamn embarrassing. It's also an age gap romance, and I don't know how, but it made me fall in love with it, and I am almost a little pissed that it did. I just really like this novel so much. J.J. Arias is really hit or miss for me, and I genuinely don't understand how to tell beforehand if I'm going to love the book or not. This was brilliant. This was everything I wanted from The Other Woman. I'm not going to lie, I wanted it from that movie. I think it makes the premise much more interesting, and the whole we're spending time together to expose this nasty, unwashed man makes this experience so much more satisfying, in my opinion. The next prompt is, I love this cover, but I didn't like this book. And once again, we're going to dip our toes into the DNFs. Princess of Dorsa by Eliza Andrews. You've probably seen me reading this book on Goodreads if you're following me on Goodreads. Because I genuinely put an effort into it. I wanted to film a queer romantasy reading vlog, but the book was so bad from the fantasy standpoint, and I genuinely love the cover. I think it's a very decent cover for sapphic romantasy that was published independently. They usually don't have really good covers. For some reason, people think that they shouldn't invest in covers, and I disagree, because the cover is your best marketing tool. Let's dig a little bit more why this book had not worked for me and why I DNF'd it. So the premise at first was interesting, and I actually like the character, the protagonist. She is a princess of a kingdom. Her father doesn't believe that she's up for the throne. He also had a son, but he died, and he's grieving him, but he also doesn't want his daughter to rule. He expects her to find a good husband, so he would rule. This is a big conflict in their relationship, which leads Nastasia to rebel even more. She is constantly in beds with men, women. She is in love with her maid, which is not entirely reciprocated. They are getting steamy, but the maid really wants to climb the social ladder. So it seemed to me that she would be into anyone with high enough status. Regardless, Nastasia is very independent. She wants to lead the life that she wants to lead, and she's not particularly impressed with her father trying to control her. But in the starting chapters of the novel, while she sneaks away from the castle to hook up with one of her lovers, she is attacked by someone who tries to kill her, which raises alarm in the castle. Her father decides to be even more strict. They have a conversation, like a very honest, straight-up conversation, and Nastasia tells him that he never took her seriously, and she wishes he did. She wishes he gave her an opportunity to be an heir that he could be proud of. And he actually listens to her and allows her to take more responsibility in the court. He's still very protective, so he assigns a guard to her, a female guard, a foreign female guard. And essentially, this is a romance between them. It slowly starts to develop. The book lacks grounded fantasy world building, which is a serious problem for me because I'm not just a romance reader. I read fantasy as well, and I'm used to complicated fantasy world building. And when I read something very simplistic and something that doesn't make sense, I get pissed off. Nastasia, also paired with her maid, was such a mean girl, like in a very off-putting way. And specifically, what I couldn't tolerate is how she treated her guard. Not because she couldn't be rightfully pissed that she is literally being watched at all times, but because she targeted her race and ethnicity. This was such a bad look, and I don't know why it was included in a romance novel. What are we trying to do here? This was such a turn-off for me. Compare that with very basic fantasy plot and poor world building, and you get a novel that I really don't want to continue reading. So at the end, I DNF'd it, maybe at 20-30% as well. The last prompt is, I don't like this cover, but I love this book. And the definition of this phenomena is Who'd Have Thought by J. Benson. I'm so grateful to my past self that I decided to look past the cover and read it. This was phenomenal. It's an incredibly good slow burn romance. It's an incredibly believable fake fiance romance, which almost never happens. It genuinely felt like these two characters fell in love over a significant amount of time. Sometimes authors do not give enough breathing room to the characters to actually develop feelings, but in this case it was one of the most beautiful slow burn romances, despite the very unusual situation that they ended up in. The story is about Hayden, who is a nurse and who struggles with her bills. She has a student debt that she is yet to pay off, and her relatives need money. Her mom, I believe, is struggling with a very nasty illness, and Hayden doesn't really know how to make more. She's scrolling on Reddit one day and she finds a very odd post. The person is looking for a fake fiance, and they're willing to give the fake fiance a really fat check. It's really good money. The interesting part of this post is that the author doesn't disclose why they need the fiance so quickly and so desperately. But she's quite desperate, so she decides to meet up with this person. And this person turns out to be a neurosurgeon called Samantha from her hospital. They don't have the best relationship. They actually piss each other off a lot, but they have a very frank conversation and essentially agree to do it. The premise is as basic as they can be, but the actual work that the author spent on building this relationship is outstanding. It also keeps you interested despite the page count and how slow their relationship is developing, because we get to know Samantha's and Hayden's family a little bit more and understand where they're coming from and what their issues are, why they reacted to each other so badly in the hospital in the first place. And there also is a bit of a secret behind Samantha needing a fiance and going to these extremes, going to Reddit to look for a fake fiance. This was such a phenomenal book, and I'm scared to read more Jane Benson. This author actually has quite a few books. They are all set in hospitals. I don't know why. Perhaps the author has some experience working in a hospital. And there is a specific one that I'm really interested in, which has to do with cheating. I know it's not everyone's favorite. Most people want to read a romance with a cheating element, but I believe that J. Benson can actually pull it off and make me like the book. So these are all the books that I wanted to talk about in this video. In the comment section, tell me about a book that you hated in the genre that you usually love, or a book that you loved in the genre that you usually hate. I think it's such an interesting question. If you reach this part of the video, leave an emoji of a heart in your favorite color, and I will see you soon with another one. But until then, bye.